in L.A. They loved them here.
But Mickey doesn't rely solely on the kindness of strangers for his Teflon record. He's established a far-reaching network of bribery and graft.
Everybody was on the pad. That means taking a payoff. Mickey said that at that time, Edmund Brown, the former governor, was a district attorney, and he said that he was on Mickey's payroll, and so was the whole sixth floor of the district attorney's office.
Well, my handle was from maybe from 250,000 a day to maybe 600,000 a day. And there was at times when you only had maybe a minute and a half to move this money. And there would be an impossibility to operate this type of operation or this type of commission business without an absolute okay, where you didn't have to worry about anybody knocking on your door.
As Mickey said in his book, I did know some of the cops because they were on my payroll at some time or another. Many times I'd pull away from them without thinking and lose them. But then I'd turn back and go find them so that they wouldn't have to turn in a report that they lost me. They had to make a living too, you know. By the mid-40s, Mickey Cohen is a well-established fixture on the LA scene. But he'll always be a second banana as long as Ben Siegel is around looking after the New York mob's interests. However, in 1946, Ben becomes possessed with his dream of creating a glamorous haven for legalized gambling in the Nevada desert.
Well, when Ben started going to Vegas around 46 to start building the Flamingo, everything was turned over to Mickey. So Mickey was really almost like the boss here. He then ran all of the bookmaking, and he became what was known as a commission bookmaker. If a big bet came in for 50,000, 100,000, the little bookmakers couldn't handle that, so Mickey would. And then he could lay it off back in New York or Chicago or wherever he wanted to lay it off. So at that point, then, Mickey was really running Los Angeles.
Siegel's preoccupation with the construction of the Flamingo Hotel is a break for Mickey. But for Jack Dragna, it only rubs salt into an old wound and brings a long, festering vendetta to a boiling point.
From the time they came out here until 1947, Jack Dragna was a jealous and bitter man of Ben and Mickey.
On the night of June 19th, 1947, Ben Siegel is shot to death at his girlfriend's Beverly Hills home. His death paves the way for a struggle over gambling territory. People start getting killed. Los Angeles is about to experience its first gang war.
When Siegel was assassinated in 47, that's when Cohen began moving into his territory and taking over the bookmaking operations, and Dragna resented it.
While Siegel had strong ties to New York mob boss Frank Costello, Cohen is more of an independent. With Las Vegas now the new gambling mecca, Costello loses interest in Los Angeles.
Frank Costello backed off at that point and told them to settle it themselves. So that's what started the War of Sunset Strip.
First, there is the attempt on Mickey's life at his haberdashery on the Sunset Strip in 1948. One night, Cohen and his associate, Hookie Rothman, stop by the clothing store. As usual, the first thing Mickey does is go wash his hands. Suddenly, he hears gunshots.
During the War of Sunset Strip, when these guys came into Mickey's haberdashery to try to kill Mickey, when Hookie thought that they might hurt Mickey, he tried to grab the shotgun away from this guy, and the guy pulled the trigger and blew Hookie apart. He died trying to save Mickey.
The attack marks Dragna's formal declaration of war. This time, Mickey's life is saved by his obsessive hand-washing. But it is not the last time that Cohen will be spared by a peculiar string of good luck. Later, when Mickey pulls into the circular driveway of his Brentwood home, guns emerge from the hedges and bombard his car in a hail of gunfire. He quickly slams his Cadillac into reverse and beats a fast getaway. Miraculously, Mickey once again walks away without a scratch.
This guy had 9 lives. Nobody could kill him. He was impossible to kill.
The attacks on Mickey don't seem to faze the little guy a bit. He still keeps a high profile on the streets. When he spots one of Dragna's men, whom he knows to be an informant, he decides to go after him.
And Mickey Cohen definitely had a code. He lived by his code. A guy's either a rat or he's a good guy. If he's a rat, he talks to coppers. A good guy keeps his mouth shut.
At 1 o'clock on a sunny afternoon, Mickey Cohen and Frank Nicoli walk into Lucy's El Adobe restaurant in Hollywood. The men are on the trail of a stool pigeon named Jimmy Utley. As Mickey describes the incident in his book, he says, "We didn't try to kill him. We just gave him a terrible going over. Naturally, I gave him a few Sicilian backhanders. There was a little panic and people hollering as they watched this stool pigeon scream." So far, fortune has smiled on Mickey Cohen. But the War of the Sunset Strip is far from over, and the real showdown is yet to come. Los Angeles, July 20th, 1949, just before dawn. Tension has been growing for months between Jack Dragna and Mickey Cohen for control of the city. Things come to a head as Mickey and some friends exit Sherry's restaurant. Sherry's is a regular after-hours hangout for Cohen. He leaves with several friends and associates, including columnist Floribel Muir, Nettie Herbert, and his bodyguard. Across the street, two gunmen carefully take aim and open fire. Everybody in the party is wounded.
They killed Nettie Herbert, they shot 3 or 4 other people, and they also shot Mickey at the same time. Mickey was just shot in the shoulder, though.
It's the worst gangland shooting in the city's history. And the war continues. One night, the slumber of Mickey's peaceful Brentwood neighborhood is rocked by a powerful explosion as half of Cohen's house is blown apart.
You know, he and his wife had separate bedrooms on separate sides of the house. He happened to spend the night in his wife's bedroom that night. When they blew up his house, they put the bomb on his bedroom. It still blew up half of his house, and it blew up all of his suits, which really upset him.
At the times when actually probably another person would have wound up in a straitjacket with what I was going through, with bombings and shootings, and of course it was an out-and-out war. It was called the Battle of the Sunset Strip. And even in those days, I slept very well. And a lot of people were wondering if I was in my correct mind.
Once again, Mickey has been spared by a stroke of good luck. But how long will his luck hold out? This is the question the public begins to ask as he continues to walk away from one attempt on his life after another.
The assassination attempts provoked a lot of outcry. But down deep, Mickey Cohen fascinated the public. And the public was fascinated by his ability to survive. I mean, look, they dynamited his home, he got away. They walked into his clothing store and started shooting, he got away.
The war hits too close to home and the public demands action. So the LAPD moves quickly and steps up its surveillance on Cohen. John O'Mara, one of the officers in the LAPD's Special Organized Crime Unit, remembers trying to keep tabs on Mickey.
We couldn't get into where he had his meetings with his cohorts, and that was in a big rumpus room and that's where his television was.
So the LAPD arranges to have an undercover cop pose as a TV technician and bug Mickey's TV. When the man comes back each week, supposedly to make sure the TV is working all right, he is actually there to change the batteries on the bug. For his trouble, Mickey tips him.
And Mickey was tipping him every time for bugging his own house.
The LAPD is not the only one keeping their eyes on Mickey Cohen. By 1949, the IRS is beginning to notice Mickey is doing quite nicely for himself, especially after he lavishly rebuilds his bombed-out home.
Mickey had a very nice home in Brentwood. His furnishings were very elaborate. It was a very nice house. He had a cook that would come in and cook. He had a housekeeper. He had everything that you could possibly have in that house.
Not a bad setup for a man who claimed his fortune was mined in a clothing store. But not everyone is fooled.
Bulldog Bowler of the IRS Treasury Department Intelligence Unit made a career out of nailing Mickey Cohen. He said Cohen was probably the most powerful mob figure on the West Coast at one time.
The heat has been turned up. With the IRS and the LAPD on his back, Mickey's resources in the war with Dragna are stretched thin. Sensing this weakness, Dragna tries a new tact and tests the loyalty of Mickey's gang.
These guys were very loyal to him, and a classic case is Frank Nicoli. Jack Dragna tried to lure him away, and he would not go for it. And he says, I wouldn't never cross Mickey. I love the guy. There was a knock on the door. 4 guys walked in, and they strangled Nicoli.
Assassination attempts, wiretaps, and murdered colleagues. The luster of Tinseltown has been tarnished. And when the Brenda Allen case hits, matters get worse for Mickey as he is drawn into the fray.
Brenda Allen was the leading madam in Los Angeles. She had a string of girls working for her. She had the active support of the Vice Department and the LAPD. They kept her alive.
And the movie stars used to frequent her place, and the gangsters. And I guess some of them had a piece of the action. I don't know for sure, but I know that the cops were being paid off. There was several big scandals involving the police in her houses.
Hollywood's dirty little secret hits the front page when Mickey's friend, actor Robert Mitchum, is arrested for possession of marijuana in the company of 2 of Brenda's girls. In the ensuing controversy, the DA accuses the call girl ring of blackmailing rich clients with recordings and photographs. For no more reason except that he is LA's most prominent mobster, Mickey Cohen is subpoenaed.
I know one religion that I followed even through the days of my so-called racket days. I've had certain traits and ethics that I've lived up to, and I followed them to the letter. I've never mixed with prostitution, or either have I mixed with narcotics.
The prosecution can't turn up any witnesses or evidence linking him to Brenda Allen. And once more, Mickey is off the hook. But Brenda's impact on the scene is far from over.
The head of the Vice unit for LAPD was caught in a car with one of the top madams in L.A., and everybody wanted to know what was the head of the Vice unit doing in a car with L.A.'s leading madam.
The Allen case exposes the LAPD's widespread policy of accepting bribes, and everyone involved in the practice begins to feel the heat, including Mickey Cohen.
And that was one of the big scandals that led to the downfall of the police administration of that time and the eventual rise to power of Bill Parker.
With the LAPD under fire from all sides, the city appoints a new police chief, William H. Parker. Parker immediately becomes intent on cleaning house. Not knowing who might be on Cohen's payroll, Parker creates an intelligence division that reports directly to him. Mickey Cohen becomes the new police chief's public enemy number 1.
Mickey hated William Parker more than he ever hated anybody in his life. He thought this man was one of the most terrible people he ever met. Parker harassed Mickey all the time. Not personally, but he sent his men all the time. He was arrested once for jaywalking. He was arrested for all types of things, all kinds of things. He was harassed all the time.
We might have violated a few civil rights of their civil rights, but civil rights wasn't the great thing in those days, you know. And how the hell's a gangster going to say his civil rights were violated, you know?
Parker is particularly bothered by Mickey's love affair with the media.
He loved the press, and the press loved him. He would always stop, give them a story if they wanted one. I mean, he would let them take pictures.
Day after day, he was cultivating an image, and no other gangster in the history of this country has ever succeeded in doing that.
Part of the reason for his notoriety is his constant association with reporter Flora Belle Muir.
Flora Belle Muir was like Mickey Cohen's shadow. She covered the Sunset Strip beat. She went everywhere